Well, happy Halloween, folks. Am I supposed to say that as a believer, a Christian, someone with a channel teaching about early Genesis and other topics related to the Christ centered model? Should I be wishing people a happy Halloween? Should I have, look, courtesy of my daughter, Halloween decorations put up along the house? I've heard some Protestants say that, oh, Christians should not celebrate Halloween. Listen, folks, we own Halloween. Okay? Whatever Halloween was or might have been in history, it's ours now. Okay? We've redeemed it. I wish we had redeemed all of our culture the way we've redeemed Halloween. If we had done that, we would do very well. And Halloween really, for those more educated in church history, that's the day the Protestant Reformation started. October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther nailed to the door his 95 Theses, where he said, this is what the Catholic Church has been doing wrong. This is what needs to be reformed. And he started the Protestant Reformation. So I call it Reformation Day. I don't really call it Halloween very often, but there's nothing wrong with calling it Halloween because hallowed means holy. Ween is an evening. When it's said like in the Lord's Prayer, hallowed be thy name, made holy be thy name, as in we are supposed to act holy. We who bear his name act holy, and hopefully that exalts his name and brings to the reality the holiness of his name here on this earth. So I don't think it's whether you do Halloween, but it's how you do Halloween that counts. And the way it's done now is either there are places that are still imbued with the gospel and the community is a Christian, over by and large a Christian community, and it's still safe to go knock on doors and collect candy and see all the neighbors and laugh at each other's decorations and costumes. And that's where the gospel is sort of washed over the whole community, and there's still the consensus of the gospel. But other places where it is not in America, we've lost the consensus of the gospel. Halloween isn't safe because there it is not practiced the same way, and people are afraid to send their children out to meet their weirdo neighbors who they don't know and they don't trust. And so what do? Well, they go to the local Protestant church and they go to the trunk or treat. Even the people who don't go to church, they'll take their kids to the church trunk or treats and they'll celebrate the candy gathering part of it there with the Christians. We own Halloween. We've redeemed Halloween. Glory to God. We're finally doing something right. I've criticized the church a lot, but we're finally doing something right in Halloween. Let's not blow it over some misunderstanding and say, oh, it's the devil's day. It's not the devil's day. Every day is the Lord's day, and particularly Halloween. In many churches, and I go to Lutheran church. It is All Saints Day is what it is. Martin Luther would not have hung up his 95 Thesis on the devil's day, no matter what those my Roman Catholic friends tell you. It's All Saints Day. And really, in the Sunday closest to that, or maybe just after that, you're supposed to, in the next church service, call out the name of every saint who died that year, and you ring a bell to celebrate their life and to remember them. So it is a day when we celebrate all saints. And if we want to do that by putting on a bunch of costumes and going around and giving children candy, I don't see the harm in that. No one who's handing out that candy, or maybe I won't say no one, but I don't really think there's a lot of people handing that candy think, here, I'm giving this candy to glorify the devil or to serve Satan or anything like that. They're not doing that. And look, even in the Bible, there were really people who sacrificed food to idols and then sold it in the marketplace. And the Apostle Paul has a very nuanced view about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and then again in chapter 10. And it's true the Jerusalem church said, hey, don't eat food sacrificed to idols. We don't want to put a bunch of rules on you, but here's just a couple of rules. Don't eat food sacrificed to idols. But then the Apostle Paul sort of filled all that in, and he basically said, now look, we know there's really no other God besides the God, but don't participate. If these food sacrificed to idols, don't participate with that because you might have a brother who's weak and who doesn't know it's okay. It's okay because those aren't really gods. So we know that this food allegedly sacrificed to idols is just food, and we eat it with enjoyment and we give thanks to God, and it nourishes us, and it's cool. But I will give that up if my weaker brother who doesn't know that, who doesn't understand that, is made to stumble. So you might think, well, if there are people who are weaker in the faith and say, gee, don't do Halloween because Christians don't do that, maybe you shouldn't do Halloween so as not to offend them. And that would actually be a legitimate viewpoint. However, the Christians telling us you shouldn't practice Halloween, you shouldn't participate in it, they don't consider themselves the weaker ones. They consider themselves the better Christians because they follow more rules than we do. I don't agree with them on that, but the bottom line is they don't see themselves as the weaker in the faith. It won't shake up their faith if they think, well, the Moore family just is not as spiritual as us. It's not shaking their faith. They just accept maybe their faith in us. So I would, in 1 Corinthians 10, Paul goes on and says, look, when you buy meat in the market, just don't even ask. These so-called food sacrificed to idols, don't even ask the butcher, hey, was this meat you're selling me, was it used as part of a pagan sacrifice? Don't worry about that. Just buy the meat. If you find out, then maybe it's an issue because you don't want to cause anybody to stumble. But it's really no big deal. And so I look at it that Halloween is something where finally, the church in America has done what we should do to the whole culture. And that is redeem it, make it better, make it a contrast when we're running the show versus the world is running the show, how much more fun and even wholesome it is. So if you want to celebrate Halloween, really have fun with Halloween, but do it as unto the Lord. It's All Saints Day, okay? You are not doing it for the reason someone else might be doing it, but the reasons you're doing it make it better. And so let's do it that way. I'm sorry if you disagree. I'm sure you'll let me in the comments. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel about it. Could I be wrong about that? Yeah, I don't have a word from the Lord on this, other than what I've just summed up in 1 Corinthians and that sort of thing. But let me know in the comments if you think I got it wrong. Let's discuss it here. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you, and happy Halloween.